All right. Sorry I'm late. Little bit of difficulties getting in today, but we're going to make this the best we can with the time we got left. So if you're in crypto 2025, you're probably very aware that interop presents itself as one of the most material problems the industry has left to solve. Myself, I co-founded Hyperlane. At Hyperlane, we've been working on these things for about 3 years, and we were vividly aware of this going to be one of the largest problems faced by the industry. And specifically, our approach to it is you have to do things in the form of an open framework. It has to be open source. It has to adhere to crypto values when it comes to open source and permissionlessness. Not just because of philosophical reasons, but also because that is the only way to scale. Our point of view at Hyperlane, how we think of the world and how we think of crypto advancing is, you're just not going to be able to serve a global internet scale type of demand through blockchains if you're going to have just one of them. It does not matter how performant that is, right? Like if you think of the internet that we have today, there's not like one server somewhere underground in a Fort Knox-like structure. There's an ungodly large number of servers distributed all over the world, and that's what serves the internet that we use today. We think that there is no way that the same construction, what we sometimes call horizontal scaling, is not going to materialize for crypto as well. Now, if that's going to make any sense, if you're going to have an increasingly large and increasingly rapid expansion in the number of chains, you need a way to connect those chains permissionlessly and scalably. And that's where something like Hyperlane, an open framework for interoperability, comes in. So normally I'd give you a brief on what Hyperlane is. If you're not familiar with it, again, open framework for interoperability, been operating for a number of years. Today it does the second most in terms of daily cross-chain messaging volumes. And you can use it today if you want to. You can go on the Hyperlane docs, download the CLI, and give it a shot. You could deploy it to any new chain yourself. You can deploy bridges through it, what we call warp routes, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more length. But our goal with Hyperlane, fitting with this view of there's going to be an increasingly large number of chains, is to simply let any single person connect any single chain. And beyond that, take it a step further, allow the creation of, sometimes we call them interop zones, sometimes we call them trade alliances. It's still early in the process, so not finalized on the naming, but we'll talk about just one such of these interop zones today. The first one is Superlane. This went live right around the time of DevCon at late November, and represents a joint effort between Hyperlane and the Velodrome team to bring a seamless interoperability experience between superchains. And so why does any of this matter beyond the fact that there's going to be a ton of chains? Right? It's not just that the number of chains is expanding very rapidly. The industry is adopting new chain architectures very rapidly as well. Right? If you go back just 2 years, we only had the OP stack as pretty much the only other way to build a homogenized type of chain in the EVM ecosystem. 2 years later, you have the OP stack, you have Arbitrum's Orbit, ZK Sync and their elastic structure, you have Polygon and CDK, and I'm sure there's many more architectures that are missing out. That's just in the EVM world. Then think about the Solana world with the SVM. Up until now, there's really was only with Solana, but in the last few months, Hyperlane helped several new SVM chains launch, such as Eclipse, another called Soon, several more launching over the next few weeks. And it seems undeniable, based on the trajectory that we see, that you're going to actually get a divergence of architectures and the SVM as well. And all of this, and we didn't even get to some of the up-and-coming VMs like Telegram, like Move, and many others coming on. So now I think you're a developer, whether you're building an application or you're building a new chain, how much complexity do you have to inherit just because you want to be able to communicate between these different architectures and these different chain types? It gets pretty untenable pretty fast, and that's why there's this sort of interop crisis. That's where an open framework like Hyperlane comes in. So we're going to skip some of these parts. And so in more detail, what is Hyperlane really? In my view, interop protocols, interop frameworks really do three things, and that's how they deliver some value to somebody. And those three things that they do is, first, they provide a consistent interface. This is the way that you would message between one chain and another. Think of this as like the on-chain API that you as a developer interface with. In the case of Hyperlane, we call this the Hyperlane mailbox. The second thing these protocols are meant to do for you is provide some sort of security around the thing that you're sending, that communication between a number of chains. And the third thing is a guarantee around delivery. How do you make sure that you have that message that you're sending through the interface, you have a way to secure that message, how does it actually get to its destination? And so Hyperlane gives you all of these and lets you own, operate, and manage every single part of this. So as I mentioned before, you can go on the docs right now if you were so inclined. You could download the Hyperlane CLI. You could deploy all of this fairly easily to any chain you'd like. Never have to talk to me, never have to talk to anyone of the Hyperlane core team. You can just do things, as they say today. The fact that you get this consistent interface means that now your overhead is vastly reduced. The complexity you have to inherit just because you want to be operating across a number of chains and maybe a number of chain architectures, vastly reduced. Same interface everywhere you go. Meanwhile, Hyperlane takes care of that complexity for you. Perhaps my favorite thing, and where I think this notion of it being an open framework really comes in, is on the second item of what these frameworks do for you when it comes to security. You're not tied to any default setting or any, you're not forced to do anything you don't like. Hyperlane was the first to decouple security from the actual message passing and to modularize this part of the stack. And so with Hyperlane, anything that provides a state attestation or a state proof. So think it could be as simple as as a system of several validators to as complex as the state of the art when it comes to zero knowledge proofs. Anything like that can be turned into a Hyperlane module. When you use Hyperlane, you have the option of just running on existing modules that other people have deployed and operated, and if you feel comfortable with those, you can go ahead. Or you could bring your own, and in that way, insulate yourself from taking on any third-party risk when it comes to your interop stack. Yes, you're using code that's been put together by a group that isn't yourself, but there's a huge advantage to that insofar as reducing the time you need to get to production. You're also using something that's been battle tested, that's delivered millions of messages, billions of dollars in volume, and has been tried and true and fits on many other chains and applications. So Superlane is one example of using a unique security module. So instead of depending on any existing security set, the Superlane collaboration is its first of its kind interop zone, where it has a unique set of validators who secure the message passing. They are spread across the superchain, and any app on the superchain that wants to use this is able to. Now, it's the first of these zones, but it certainly won't be the last of these zones. This type of architecture can be brought to any type of ecosystem or to any type of application. Right? So if you're out here and you're sitting and you're at one of these firms like zkSync or Arbitrum, or you're at one of the rollup providers. Actually, later today, one of the major rollup providers is going to announce their creation of just such a zone like this. You can use all of these building blocks to create a specific zone for your ecosystem, and it can use this today. So you can give your users state-of-the-art interop experience today, and when your native experience, your native security setting comes live, everyone who's already integrated this is able to seamlessly switch without having reinvented the integration. And perhaps the best part is you're not limited solely within the bounds of your ecosystem. You can connect with any other chain that already has Hyperlane. So today, that's a field of about 140 chains spread across many VMs. So a lot of other things I would want to talk about today. The last one before I go is the Open Intents framework. This is a tool created with us in collaboration with the Ethereum Foundation. Was launched last week, and basically allows anyone who builds with intents to get to production much faster. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to me, and thanks for your time.